Israel's genocide of the Palestinians has shown the world how brutal the United States and its satellites are willing to destroy any population uh, seeking to live like an independent human beings. U.S. foreign policy is based on control of the world's oil, and that means for the Middle East, using Israel as its local manager, as a landed aircraft carrier, as the phrase goes, to mobilize ISIS and other terrorist groups to destabilize Syria, Iran, and other countries seeking to control their own oil, their own agriculture, and their own natural resources and mercenaries. The whole world can see the violence that is occurring there under the U.S. bombs that are being dropped on the Palestinians. These are not Israeli bombs; these are America bombs sent week after week after week. And President Biden has said in the past, you have to destroy all of the Palestinians in order to have the power to proceed and do to Syria and Iran and Jordan exactly what you've done to the Palestinians there. And you will be our protectors so that we can control Middle Eastern oil and turn off the oil supply and power to any countries that are trying to go it alone and being independent. You're seeing what the United States is willing to do to fight to prevent your independence. And if you want to avoid being picked off one country after another country after another country, Chile, Argentina, I could go on and on, then Libya, then you've got to stand together. Or what did the American revolutionists say? We've got to hang together or we'll all hang separately. I think you can look at the news broadcasts that you're seeing every night as a warning of the urgency that is needed, the total break in order to protect yourself. And a BRICS bank, all of this has to be centered basically on a BRICS bank that needs to be created to replace the IMF. And a bank for economic acceleration to replace the World Bank. You need not only to break from the United States itself, but from its neoliberal economic philosophy of development, its philosophy of privatization, its philosophy of free trade without any government role to prevent wealth from concentrating in the hands of a 1% oligarchy controlling the rest of the economy. You've got to have a government strong enough to keep control in the hands of the people that elect the government, not an independent financial means of control, shifting economic planning away from the government political centers to the financial centers that are controlled by the wealthiest 1%. So all of this means a withdrawal from the IMF and the World Bank and in order to free yourself, basically, from the debt burden that you now have and from the bad economic philosophy that has led you into debt. So it's not only the debts that have to be canceled, it's the pattern of economic growth, the anti-socialist policies that have led these countries into debt. They all go together. Yes, just a few countries can't withstand sanctions and U.S. attacks. It wouldn't help just for China or Russia or Iran to say, well, they've sanctioned us, we'll go it alone. U.S. diplomacy is violent when corruption, if they're not able to use corruption and bribery to gain control of foreign leaders like they do in Europe. America, it's very easy for American to buy German or French or English leaders just by paying them bribery, giving them a lot of money, creating non-government organizations that will give them wealthy positions and support. That's what the Bandung Conference back in 1955 of the non-aligned nations failed because there had to be some powerful and self-sufficient economies to form a core so that they wouldn't have to go it alone individually, but could go it alone with enough other countries so that they could have enough to develop themselves from the ground up. So that was you have to begin by creating a group organization and saying this is our philosophy of growth. This is how we want to go to develop. Here is our plan, such as we need ports and railroad development and transportation, such as China's already been putting in place with the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, in 1931, the United States finally recognized that its hardline creditor policy had bankrupted America itself as well as Europe. And brought on the Great Depression. The United States insisted that the Allies pay America for the arms that it had sold to them before America's entry into the war. And the Allies didn't have any money to pay because there'd just been a war. And so the Allies said, okay, if we pay you, we'll make Germany pay the reparations to us. Well, Germany had no money to pay the reparations either because it lost the war. So the result was that the demand on Europe, the Allies and Germany to pay the United States, Germany to pay England and France and the Allies to turn around and pay this money to the United States. That led to the Great Depression already. And so the United States said, okay, we can't have more depression or you'll all go communist. So we're going to create a moratorium on German reparations and which had been imposed to enable the Allies to pay their debts to the United States. Well, that moratorium became permanent or almost permanent. In practice. The important thing is to suspend dollar service. Now, you can make it wrapped in a nice rhetoric and say, well, it doesn't have to be permanent. Let's see how things go. But for the time being, let's have a moratorium. And then, in fact, the moratorium will be permanent, just as occurred after 1931 with its international debts. The important thing is to suspend dollar debt service because the capital poor global south countries are sending all their money to the capital rich countries, not the other way around. As I said, that's the legacy of European colonialism and the much more vicious but less visible American monetary imperialism. Well, the big problem, as I said, is how do you create a consciousness for a strategy and actually have the motivation to act now? There's a tendency to say, yes, the world economy is unfair. What are we going to do to make it fair? And well, you can complain, you can hope that, well, down the road, it's got to get better. But at some point, until you act, it's not going to get better. And I think right now, the global South countries in particular have such a high foreign debt that they're all going to end up with their currency collapsing if they don't immediately this year stop paying the United States. The dollar debts that they owe. So I think when they see the war against Palestine, they see the American intention to go to war with China and Russia, as we're seeing in Ukraine in the West and the China Sea in the East, this shows that there's a real war on. And if you realize there's a war on, you can't just go about your business and let yourself be conquered. If there's a war on, you have to fight back. And I think the war is so explicit right now, so clear as to what's happening from the Ukraine to Palestine, to the China Sea, to U.S. meddling in Central Asia and Latin America, that it has become urgent now to take action, because if you don't, the countries are going to be so weakened that there'll be easy pickings for the United States. Now, this de-dollarization is the only way to avoid the burden of paying so much tribute for this legacy of colonialism and bad loans imposed by the U.S., that the post-colonial legacy has left the world with no reasonable ability or resources to develop themselves. And to achieve economic reliance, they need a break. But to have this break, they need to spell out a program. They need to get together and describe a strategy. Way back in the early 20th century, the labor unions, the Russian Revolution, for instance, they needed to develop, they needed a party apparatus to develop a strategy to actually say, okay, let's put all of the demands that labor has together. You need labor unionization, you need healthcare, you need the whole list of things. Well, right now, you don't have a single party over the whole world, but you do have a let's say the Central Committee would be the BRICS negotiators that are trying to develop an economic plan. You have to have something like America's Declaration of Independence that will include, here are the specific aims of this non-dollarized, non-neoliberal new economic order.